literally modeling us. If we say my teen is short-tempered, it means I have modeled that behavior.
When a child comes to you with rage, anxiety, and so figuring out how can we ourselves be regulated and how can we support our child in being regulated is our job. And so, because that is really going to be what they remember.
So if a parent gets angry and the parent loses temper, the game is lost.
Respect means to hold someone in high regard, and that's something that's earned.
So hi, Beth. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. I truly
Thank you.
appreciate you taking out time to join us on Dreemen's Teen Talk Show.
My pleasure.
Your work in parenting, emotional regulation, and neurodivergence has been making a huge impact, and I know our audience will gain so much insights from this discussion. So, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I am just delighted to be here. I'm a parent educator and an early childhood educator and a parent coach in the other side of the country in Washington State. And I am really passionate about supporting families. We've been through some turbulent times in my own home, and I've figured out some really important things that shifted that energy for us. And so I'm just excited to be able to offer that to other families. So thanks for having me.
Where did you get the inspiration to work on such a delicate subject? It's not easy.
Yeah,
Growing up, book for this.
Yeah, growing up, I'm neurodivergent myself, and I struggled. And I started kind of a similar parenting style with my children that I had, and my parents were doing their best. They didn't know how to do it, and it wasn't working. And so I was teaching kindergarten at the time, and I had a pretty good understanding about childhood development, and my own kids were just baffling me. And so I just dove in and tried a bunch of things and got as much support as I could get, and things shifted, and it was pretty cool.
You talk a lot about self-regulation and co-regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what they are and how they are crucial for teens?
Well, self-regulation, it refers to your ability to adjust and control energy level, your arousal state, your behaviors, attention, alertness. I kind of think of it like thermostat. So when you're regulated, I think somebody I read had this idea and I loved it. When you're regulated, you're like just at the right temperature. And when you're dysregulated, you're too hot or too cold. And so figuring out how can we ourselves be regulated and how can we support our child in being regulated is our job. And for me as a parent educator and a caregiver educator, I'm always guiding people to look for clues of your child or teen's regulation. All of the behaviors that we see, it's communication. And often it's not skillfully communicated because they haven't developed those skills yet. And so for us to see the meltdown or the whatever it is as they're just dysregulated and they need some support. If their thermostat is too low or too high, we can see that communication from the behavior. And then when we show up, we co-regulate with them by being as calm and regulated and in our bodies as we can. And I use the word calm, but it's not always calm because when our child is coming to us in a really heightened state, it wouldn't make sense for us to have a blank face and to just be totally not, reacting in any way. But it's kind of like steady. I've heard some people call it like sturdy. So whatever they're bringing, we are going to be steady in ourselves. We're going to be sturdy in ourselves so that we can offer. There's something called mirror neurons. And so in our brain, we're saying, okay, whatever's coming, we're going to be okay. I've got this. Our kids feel that energy, and that's going to support them. And our teens feel that energy of like, oh, my parent has this. They can handle this. I can handle this. And that co-regulation is what develops self-regulation. Self-regulation happens over time, and it takes years to develop, 27 years, in fact, before the brain is fully developed. The first 4 years is a huge amount of growth happening. And then the last part, it's still developing, and it develops at different stages for each person. But they need us to model that and to just be there. Like literally the proximity makes a difference for them to be able to feel safe. And when they feel safe, their nervous system is just gonna, and then they can, get back into that connection mode.
So if a parent gets angry and the parent loses temper, the game is lost.
Temporarily, yeah. And I'm not about, this is not a job to do 100% perfectly. The repair is real. We're human, right? So repairing that mistakes happen or whatever the situation is, conflict is going to happen, and that's okay. But the more you can take care of yourself, the less you'll have those kind of unskillful, struggles. Yeah.
So many teens, they struggle with managing their emotions, especially when they are stressed. So how can parents help their teens develop an emotional regulation skill and build resilience in a healthy way? Because teens, they are often such dynamic tantrums and such dynamic emotions that it gets difficult even for a parent.
Yeah. I think when we lean in or turn towards whatever the situation is, it allows the teen or the child to feel like, oh, I feel anxiety and that's okay. But when a child comes to you with rage, anxiety, whatever it is, and the parent is overwhelmed by the feeling, then the child is looking at that and saying, oh, this caregiver parent doesn't know how to handle this. How am I going to handle it? Or the feeling I'm having is wrong. There's something wrong with me. I should be doing something different. And that actually feels like a bigger problem than just the anxiety in the beginning. So the more that we can hear the anxiety, listen to it, allow it, even thank it for coming, because we need anxiety. Before we cross the street, we want to have that little like, oh, we should look around to make sure we're safe, or we smell smoke, we should go check to see if there's a fire. Anxiety is so important and necessary. And the more we can lean into whatever the feeling is and be like, oh, yeah, you're really upset, or yeah, that makes sense. I say that makes sense a lot because although it might not be my experience of it, honoring that this is someone else's experience is so validating. And I feel like when we're not trying to push the emotion away or contort ourselves to be someone else, then feelings and emotions can be here and they shift quickly when they're allowed.
True.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for parents who are feeling like burnt out and struggling to balance and navigate that power struggles they have with their kids?
I experienced burnout really, really hard. It was just rough. I had under two. I was teaching kindergarten. I had medical challenges. I honestly thought I was going to die. Like it was such an intense time, really. And I think the thing that got me through was I wanted to be able to show up for my kids. And so I got a huge amount of help for myself. First, I was getting my kids some different supports in place, and everyone just kept saying, you need to work on yourself so that you have some more to offer for your children. And so as I just started taking care of myself in a totally different way, making sure to eat every couple hours, getting enough drinks of, water and tea and sleep and friends and acupuncture, whatever I could find. I'm in a privileged position because my family was here close by and they were able to support too. I understand that that's not always the case, but anything that you can do to find just time for yourself, when you can prioritize self-care, not in like a spa day kind of energy, that's great too, but like really just like sleep and food and emotional support, then you have that to offer your child. And it's such a game changer for them to see you taking care of yourself. One, you're modeling that. So they are going to take care of yourself because they're going to do what you do. Maybe not now, but later.
Definitely. We are our parents. Somewhere we see our parents in ourselves.
Yeah, Totally. So modeling that I think is beautiful, and getting help. I think of it as kind of like a bucket. And so if you can like fill your bucket of self-care, then it's going to spill over and you have so much more to offer your family, the world, and then that spills over because they have more to offer the people they're connected to. So start with yourself is definitely where I would say. And this is a season. Oh my goodness. I can imagine it's a challenging season for many, and seasons pass. And I have like sticky notes and stuff around my house that remind me. Like one says, it could be otherwise. Because yeah, I've got like my kids are leaving wrappers and garbage around the house and their socks, and in like 10 years, those things aren't going to be in my home. And so this is such an honor and a privilege that I get to be like, oh, the socks are all over, and finding,
they are with you.
gratitude. Exactly. Because this will pass. But if you are feeling really burnt out, it's not that you need to override that feeling and just feel gratitude, like really honor, like, yeah, this is really hard work. It's the most creative job in the world. It's really, really difficult at times.
Sometimes there is a power struggle with your teen. You tell them to do something, they say, yeah, we'll do, but they never follow through. Is
Mm-hmm.
there an advice for such a teen? Like you
Yeah.
tell them to clean their room, you tell them to put their books properly, you tell them to put their clothes properly, or you tell
Yeah.
them to just throw the trash can, but they'll say, yeah, yeah, in a minute, in a minute, that minute never comes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there isn't a magic wand for this one, but well, I guess I think about the brain a lot. And so when I work with young kids, I teach them like the wise owl part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. And when the wise owl is feeling safe with a caregiver and in an environment, when they're feeling connected, when they're feeling like regulated in their body, their thermostat is good, they've had sleep, they're not sick, they're food, all of those things, their needs are met, they want to collaborate. They want to participate. They want to support. In connection is where people survive and thrive. And that's where we want to be as much as we can. It's normal throughout the day for things to shift, of course. So the more we can build that connection with our teen or child, the more they're going to feel invested in you and the relationship. And a lot of people are really stressed, and they're kind of in the back of their brainstem area or like the amygdala. And I talk about the possum pathway, and it's an energy pathway, or the watchdog pathway. And this is from Robin Goebel. She's a fabulous author. But the idea of the possum is kind of like, I'm protecting myself. I just going to play dead. I can't do anything else right now. And maybe earpods in or whatever it is. Or the watchdog is like, go away. Like, and that's when you're seeing the really like protection mode, kind of just trying to take care of yourself. So I think of it like a bank account. If you can fill that bank account of connection and rapport with your child, your teen, they're going to care about you, and they're going to have access to the other parts of their brain that is processing and thinking like, oh, if I do this, then this happens. And so I take my teen on a coffee date every Saturday, and we walk and we go it's like a chai tea or something. And just that connection and that time for her to just say like, oh, this was hard, or whatever's going on, like that builds her felt safety with me. It builds our connection. And then anytime throughout the day, I can just look at her and let her feel like, oh, I'm so glad you're born. Just, I don't even have to say it. And I do say that, but so many people, I think, feel so stressed and so much going on. And to have somebody that just looks at you with so much love and admiration, that's going to give you some felt safety too. So building that connection, routines are really helpful. My kids know every day this is what they do. And sometimes I treat them like I would somebody, like an adult that I cared for. If they're sick or something, then I'm going to unload the dishwasher for them. It's not a rigid thing. There's a flow to it.
Have you, in your experience, seen like if parents had a difficult childhood and their parents, like they abused them or they were short tempered, that parenting comes when they are the parents, and without noticing that they have become the parents who they
Mhm.
hated, but now
Mhm.
that style is coming up on their kids?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was exactly what I experienced. And it was, I mean, not, I wouldn't say there was a lot of trauma, but it was really, we just repeat what we know, and it's in us. I think doing your own work and taking care of yourself, getting some therapy. I took a mindfulness-based stress reduction class. It's an 8-week class. I took it 3 times, and then I actually went and became a facilitator, a mindfulness facilitator, because it was so powerful. And when we do feel connected with someone, or like with a parenting coach, like that's the work I do too, is kind of unpack like where are these behaviors coming from for the adult, and like behaviors make sense, right? So we're looking at kind of what's underneath that, and why did we need that protection mode kind of parenting style, and then kind of taking care of ourselves and allowing the feelings and allowing whatever's to be there, and having a co-regulator, an adult to co-regulate with and to process that. It takes time. But yeah, mindfulness, I think, is a really beautiful way to process some of these things and just get comfortable in the discomfort, because life is hard and there is suffering. And so the more we can be with what's here, with less of a big reaction, then we just have the original thing that happens and we can handle it.
So, what are some daily habits that can be introduced to create a more connected home environment in a world where like social media is a huge distraction and everybody is hooked to the phones,
Yeah.
especially the kids?
Oh, such a good question. um, well, I think there's 2 pieces. One is just setting up time that you're really intentional about connecting. So right when your child wakes up, I literally climb up into my kid's bunk bed some days, just because those first couple minutes are so important, or right when they walk out. Meals, those are great times to connect. Right when they're leaving, right when they come in the door. Just, I work from home often, and I try to stop what I'm doing and get up and go out there to connect. Just 2 minutes. Say, hey, how was your day? Hug if they want to hug. And so those kind of connectors with that anchor of your steadiness is really supportive. I just read The Anxious Generation, all about technology use for teens, and how much the smartphone has really influenced
A lot
all
of
of us.
information.
Yeah, yeah. And so, well, I think if possible, and I know that everyone's in a different state, but if possible, waiting until your teen is 14 to give them a smartphone, and waiting for social media till 16 is beneficial if you can. I know that that's not always the case. And prioritizing getting outside, normalizing going on a little adventure on the weekends, get another family and their kids to go with you to make it more easeful if you can. And then talking to your kid about these things. This is a collaboration. And so saying things like, hey, I noticed at dinner, blah, blah, blah. Would it be okay if we talk about it? And they might say no if they don't feel very safe and connected with you. And you're like, okay, well, I do want to talk about it maybe tomorrow. And then come back and see how you can, have this conversation. And if they say yes, then I might say, what did you notice? What was going on for you? And it's really about listening to them and hearing what's going on. And I get to have a voice here too. So I'm going to share. It's hard for me to have a conversation when your headphones are in or whatever the situation. What can we do about that? And they have great ideas. They can offer that. And so when I'm coming in with like, you need to do this and this and this and this, they don't have the buy-in. They don't feel safe. They don't feel connected. So why would they do that? And I also think about consequences with those kinds of things. If I were to go to work and I was having a hard time and I didn't get my work in, or who knows what the situation is, I'm always late, and my boss was like, no more lunch breaks, no more breaks, I'm cutting your pay, I'm not going to come in and be more collaborative and work harder. I'm going to actually be in protection mode. And so the thing I would want my boss to do is be like, hey, I noticed you've been coming in late. Can we talk about it? What's going on? What do you need? And then I'd be like, hey, this is going on. Can I come in late on Fridays because of this situation? And then I'm going to show up and do the best job possible because I feel seen and safe with that boss. And so I think it's really similar with kids, just checking in with them and giving them a voice.
True. And sometimes, like, parents separate, divorces happen.
Mhm.
And I have a case where the parents separated, and the kids they had to move in. Mother remarried, and the kids they had to move in with their mother in the step parents' house. They also had the guy also had two kids.
Mhm.
This lady she also had two kids, but she faced a challenge there because whenever she tried to say something to the stepchildren, they wouldn't listen,
Mhm.
and the biological parent he would never interfere. So is there a
Mhm.
way like they can set the boundaries even when because she is responsible now, she is the mother, she's mother
Yeah.
of all four, and
Mhm.
when those stepchildren don't listen, her children also don't listen
Mhm.
because they
Mhm.
understand she has no authority.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's complicated. I was really mean to my stepdad. So mean. Sorry. I was really angry, and I my feelings weren't allowed. And I think the more we can, so like I'm not saying behaviors like it's not okay for people to physically harm people, but it is okay to feel whatever you're feeling. And I felt really upset, and I think teens and children like going through that kind of divorce, like that's a really big deal. It's really, really hard. And yeah, it's hard for us as adults, but for teens, like we kind of like we know more of the story, and we know like, oh, everything's going to be okay, hopefully. But they don't have that narrative. And so the more we can honor, this is really tricky, empathize, be compassionate, and connect. When we have that rapport, it doesn't matter who it is, with a teacher, a coach, a counselor, a stepdad, a stepmom, whoever it is, that's when we're going to have that collaboration. It's important for us for survival to be in that connection mode, but these kids are going to be in protection mode. And so, how can we offer that sense of felt safety for them? One-on-one time, just like I was talking about going to coffee once a week, or finding those ways to really support them where they are at, and making it okay that where they're at is it's not going to be like that forever. But it's not about changing their behavior. It's about seeing the behavior as like, oh, they're in protection mode and they need more support. And that isn't the time to be like, I need you to do this and this and this and this and this, because that's not going to like
Not
facilitate
happen.
safety. Yeah.
For teens it's a big change. For little
Hmm.
kids they can adjust, for older kids they understand, but for
Yeah.
teens in this stage it's really really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lot of accumulated anger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And anger gets to be here. That's the thing I'll say. Like, yeah, it makes sense you're pissed. That's okay.
You have been working closely with neurodivergent teens and
Mm-hmm.
children also. So, what are the most common struggles that you have seen they face and their
Mm-hmm.
caregivers or parents? And how can they learn from your experience and support their kids and themselves better?
Um, I mean, every person is different. Every neurodivergent person is different. So I think it's really important to get to know that person and get to know what their needs are. And if they have unmet needs, they're going to be communicating it in some form. And maybe it's verbally or not, but figuring out what is their unique set of needs and how to show up so that they feel safe. If going to Costco and there's a loud buzzing sound that's really triggering for them, help them get some noise canceling earbuds, or don't go to Costco with them. Or if it's really overwhelming to go outside, don't force them to go outside. It's all about listening to them. They are fully formed beings. They have a sense of what they need, and they're going to be communicating that. And over time, many people are kind of like forced to be something different than themselves, and it's out of alignment, and it's hard. We kind of contort for survival. But the more that you can show up with empathy and compassion and really tune into what the need is, the more that they're just going to thrive. They're just going to feel so good, and it's so much easier to be in the flow when you feel like you have a team or people supporting you that hear you, and getting support. I mean, this is really intense work. It's really overwhelming at times.
Caregiver also, parent also.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And so having somebody that you can connect with, I have a number of clients and I'm just a co-regulator because like, yeah, I want to hear that and be like, it makes sense. You're overwhelmed. That's really hard. And for the teen to feel like they have that connection and they are loved and they are good enough and they don't need to, there's not something wrong with them. Like they are a unique being. 20% or more probably of the population is highly sensitive. And we need those people to smell the smoke, to notice strangeness. I call it my spidey senses. Like I have crazy spidey senses and other people don't have that, but I'm processing a little bit differently or more. I'm not totally sure. I'm hyper aware of things and that's exhausting sometimes. And so having compassion for the kids or the teens and for the caregiver, because it is big work, and getting help and occupational therapy, I feel like is such a good thing. Play therapy for youngers, getting outside, mindfulness, making sure your nutrition needs are met.
For our viewers out there who don't know what neurodivergence is, can you just
Mhm.
simplify it?
It's just brain-based differences. So it might be like OCD or ADHD or autism. I mean, there's a number of different differences. It's just a different way of that your brain is made up. And I think I was reading about people that are autistic, they have more neurons in the amygdala, and which causes some cool stuff. Like maybe their brains are functioning in this really cool way, but it's a little bit more overwhelming at times. I think of it as kind of a map. So there's like communication skills, like really high communication skills or low communication skills, and maybe they're academic skills.
Sometimes
That's a
they have the skills that average people don't. That's
absolutely
why we can't understand
right.
and we reject them.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. And so they can all be in different places on the map. And it's not that all neurodivergent people are this way. It's everybody is somewhere on the map. And I think of it as neurodivergent people are kind of in the more extremes on there, like really high communicators or really have a difficult time communicating with mouth words and wherever they are. But we just meeting them where they are. They're human beings. We're doing our
See, many parents they worry about labeling their child with a diagnosis.
mhm.
So how can they reframe their thinking to better support their teen? Because why we talk about more teens? Because this is such an age where they are very sensitive, and whatever we brand them here, it stays with them.
Yeah.
So for parents of autistic or highly sensitive teens, what are some practical ways that their child does not feel overwhelmed, he does not feel overcasted and labeled?
Yeah.
Because parents will be the first people. If they accept, they don't make them feel like they are different or this is something to be like
Yeah.
labeled, then it will be better for them.
Yeah. It's a hard question, and it's different for every family. And I think you have to kind of figure out what's right for you. Getting my diagnosis was life changing. I went through my life trying to trying to be someone else, and I had so much anxiety because I was working so much harder than many others, and I was just felt like I was always getting it wrong. And I see that, and I was seeing that kind of in my own kids. Like it's just like a little bit different, and just the way our brains work is just a little bit off. And that can turn into shame and depression and anxiety. And it can be really a painful thing to not understand, like, because I mean, many people would just assume there's something wrong with me. I'm doing it wrong. And we get those messages like verbally sometimes, but also we can just see people's face like, huh, like what are you doing, and that over time can be really, really damaging and really painful. And so I was so grateful for a diagnosis for myself and for my kids, and to be able to say like, oh, that's because we're neurodivergent. That makes sense. That's okay. And to really make it like a superpower. Like I really believe that we have, like I was talking about the map, we have some super skills. We have some places where we need extra support, and we can ask for support in those areas. And we have these things to offer. So knowing that and having that information about yourself is such a gift, and it takes away the shame and all of those pieces. If it's like you have autism spectrum disease or, or disorder. Like that feels really different than like, whoa, we have this and our brains do this. So I think it really depends on who's doing the diagnosing and the family and the timing. And there isn't a cut and dry answer, I guess, from me, but just the amount of energy it took to try to look like I was neurotypical was really not healthy for my body. And I'm so glad to know that. And I would encourage people to reach out to find how their brains work and what they need, and get some help.
For everyday parents who have kids at home, is there a way to practice mindfulness in their daily lives to become better role models for their teens?
Yeah.
Because our kids, they know how to press our buttons.
I do. I like when I used to teach reading to kindergarten, I remember reading that it's more important for us to read our own book in front of our child for pleasure than it is for us to read to our child or have them practice reading to us. Those are still really, really important, but what we model is what they're going to do. So yes, read with your child, help them anything when they're little, but you modeling those mindfulness practices, that's going to make the biggest difference. And so I wake up in the morning and do mindfulness practices. At meals, I try to slow down. I try to, ask questions to reflect about the day. I try to be present. There's times in the day where I feel like I'm going 80 miles an hour. And then I'm like, oh, like I could be going 10 miles an hour. And I verbally try to just say that and be like, I'm going to kind of slow down, or I'm just going to sit and take a break, or I'm going to go outside. Do you want to come with me? Do you want a cup of tea? Like, this smells good. Wow. Notice the trees, just being here, present now as much as you can. Like you can support them in going to camps and meditating or doing mindfulness practices or yoga, and all of that is beautiful too, but just being present and here. And I try to just notice my feet sometimes, okay, be in my feet. Because that is really going to be what they remember. Those are the things that they're going to remember about you. And that's what's going to be in their system. They'll remember it and maybe want to do that later. I have one child who loves doing mindfulness practices with me and one that doesn't. And so that's okay. And I'm modeling it and offering and letting that be exactly as it is. And I think it's all going to be okay. And it's good to practice when you can.
So in a way, they are actually modeling us. If we say my teen is short-tempered, it means I have modeled that behavior. He has picked it up, and now he's showing me the mirror. I get what I have given.
I think if you're in your amygdala, that barking dog, then they're going to be in their amygdala and then their barking dog. So yeah, it's co-escalation.
I have a younger sister. She laughs a lot. She can laugh at agony. She can laugh at her pain. She can laugh at anything. And her child, he's exactly like her. He can laugh at anything. He is sick, he can laugh at himself. Oh, look how my finger is swollen. Look how it looks. And there are kids who they get very cranky if the tiny part of body is hurt. They get very cranky. But when I look at this child, I think when you said they are modeling us.
For sure.
We make right, it's right for them.
Yeah. And the other thing that you were talking about, the tiny cut, I remember in kindergarten, some kids just need that, that's a way for them to be seen and to show their anxiety. And so some kids need 5 Band-Aids a day. And the more you're giving them Band-Aids and allowing it, the less Band-Aids they need over time. And so just being there with them with what's there, I think is the key.
Don't try to correct them right away there.
Yeah, just listen.
And there are situations, let's say, because I have a teen group, there are so many parents also involved. The child studies on his own, but when a parent tells him to study, he doesn't want to study. Why did you tell me to study? I don't want to do it now. I would have done it if you had not told me. Now you told me, now I'm not going to study. I wanted it to be my decision.
Yeah. So there's I'm not diagnosing this teen, but there's a diagnosis where like oppositional defiant or persistent, I like to call it persistent drive for autonomy. And so it's kind of like when you get any kind of pressure, you go into the amygdala and you're just like, nope, I'm going to fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Like it's just happening. They feel unsafe. And maybe it's because they have a lot of demands on them or whatever the situation. So if they're doing it on their own, then back up, give them some space. They'll figure it out. And we don't know what the outcome is, but they'll find their way. And checking in, kind of like I was saying with the, hey, I noticed blah blah blah. Like, can we talk about that, or what's coming up for you? Give them some time to share, and when they feel heard, they feel safe, and they can be more collaborative.
The most difficult time is for a mother, especially, is when the transition is from 12 to 13, 14. Up to
Mm-hmm.
12, the child is very obedient, he is very listening, he listens to every instruction. But when he enters 13, 14, he starts becoming defiant, he starts exercising his own autonomy. And it gets difficult for the mother. What happens? What happened to him? He was such a
Mm-hmm.
sweet kid, he was listening to everything. What
Mm-hmm.
happened to him? Like, what is the lesson for, for that
Yeah.
mother?
I think that we have this idea that because my kids up till 12 was actually really difficult. And so I think it's different for everybody, but my parenting is what changed. And I think for teens, for me to understand what's going on, I need to listen. I need to understand, like, they're having all kinds of shifts in hormones in their body. Like, their brain is doing so much pruning and so much is happening. And so if we come at it with curiosity, like, what was going on with that? And allowing, like, oh, yeah, it seems like you're really upset. And just being with them through all of it without getting so triggered ourselves, then their energy can come back down. But they're going to be in their amygdala a little bit more, especially with all the stuff going on in the world and the pressures of school. It makes sense. And when we are saying, like, it doesn't make sense, you should be doing this, you're wrong, then it's going to get even bigger and even harder. So I think that it can feel like the teen years are challenging, but they're doing exactly what they need to be doing. Like, they need to be trying things a little bit on their own, and they've got some big energy coming through that we can meet, and we can hold that and not take it personally, because that's what's going on over there. They're doing their work.
You're absolutely right, because they have to assert. They have to enter the adult world. They have to face the
Yeah,
world on their own.
yeah, and
And
we
as
can be in the
parents,
background, ready to support.
yeah, because if they don't, then still it's a problem for us that they're not growing, they're not maturing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, do you have any resources or tools that you know that you would recommend for parents who want to improve their relationship with their teens? Because I'm a part of a teen parenting group also,
Mm-hmm.
where parents are often complaining that my teen is disrespectful, is not
Mm-hmm.
listening. Maybe a girl or a boy doesn't matter, but they are very
Mm-hmm.
disrespectful. They are not listening. So, what should I do?
Yeah. Respect means to hold someone in high regard. And that's something that's earned. And that's something that develops with rapport and connection and safety. And to be respected, you need to respect yourself and take care of yourself so that you are modeling that respect for your child, and you are offering connection with them so that they feel safe with you. And their brains aren't fully developed. Like, they are not. They are unskillful. They're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. That's how we learn. And so up till 27, like, they're still going to be figuring all this out, and even after, we're still figuring it out. And the more we can offer compassion and understanding and so much love for them and for ourselves, over time, like, things can shift. But it's not about getting them to respect you. And that kind of respect is kind of like my respect my authority kind of thing, as opposed to respecting you as somebody that they want to be collaborative with and they want to work with and they want to reach out to when they have a question or they need some help. Um, So as far as tools, I think mindfulness apps are great. There's like Insight Timer, and there's a few. I can't think of others at the moment, but just pausing yourself, go outside, take a deep breath, get a cup of tea, get a drink a cold drink of water. I like to just look out the window and I'll set a timer for a couple minutes and just notice what's in motion. And it takes a little while, and then you'll see something move. Or doing like, there's like a mirror breath where you breathe like you're fogging up a mirror, but then you close your mouth and you do it through your nose. Anything that you can do to get your prefrontal cortex online, I think is great. And the more you can see them as still a developing brain, like they're still figuring it out. It doesn't have to do with you. Like, this is them doing their thing, and we are here in the wings to support and kind of giving, further back as they get older. But it's not about them meeting every demand that you have. And so maybe lowering demand so that they can feel a little bit safer and more connected to you for a temporary amount of time. And over time, in collaboration and connection mode, they do want to help and be a part of it.
I like the statement you said, the respect is to be earned. You have to model that behavior so that you are respected.
Yeah.
It's not something that comes with authority.
Yeah.
So is there any outdated parenting belief that you think needs to be changed for modern teens? Because we compare them with our times. Our times have changed.
Yeah, that's a good one too. There's this kind of belief in the teen years that parents aren't really needed. And so you're like, all right, you're going off. And it's so normal for teens to be like, I'm going off, I don't need you. And they actually do. And so I think it was Gabor Mate. I can't remember what book it was, but he said, let's see, it was something about peers aren't the wise voices we want in our children's ears or our teens' ears. And really what I want my teen to be, in the voice I want in her head, would be her own, and also mine, of like, is that a good idea? And so keep connecting, like all of these years up until 18, 19, as long as you can. Go get dinner, go out for dessert, go shopping, go to the mall, whatever they want to do. we find a way to let them lead and show us what they're interested in and what they want to do, and we stay connected, because there's going to be times when they do need some support, and we want to be an askable adult that they feel safe to talk to, so that we can continue to guide and support them. They need us, and we want the wise words of people with experience, lived experience, in their head too.
So is there an advice for young teens who are going to be women, like 17, 18? One piece of advice like that could guide them through their life?
So many things.
Just top 3.
Yeah. I think the more we can validate their experience and not gaslight, the more that we can honor what they're saying and say, yeah, it's like listening to what's going on physically in their body. If they feel uncomfortable, not making that wrong as the parent or the caregiver, to be like, oh, like, trust your gut on that, and really honoring, like, whatever you're experiencing makes sense. And maybe it's an uncomfortable thing that it does make sense for them to do, but supporting whatever it is, and the emotion there, or whatever it is, to validate that experience, because we want them to feel like they can trust themselves, and that's where they're going to build some confidence, and then they can go out and try the things that are a little uncomfortable. And so, yeah, just help them feel like their voice matters and to listen to themselves.
Thank you so much, Beth.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Do you have any website or some Instagram account or something?
Yeah.
If people want to connect with you, how would they connect with you?
Yeah. So my business, my website is bloomingwithbeth.com. I have a Facebook page. I'm not a big social media user right now. I should probably develop that, but I like where I'm at. It's support for families is after the facebook.com, but bloomingwithbeth.com would be the best way to reach out. And I work with families on Zoom and in person. Like I said, I'm over on the West Coast, so Zoom would probably be easier for families over there. But thank you. Thank you for your time. It was nice to reflect on all these things.
This has been such an insightful and meaningful conversation. Your
Me too.
expertise and the way you break down complex parenting and teen behavior challenges is definitely so valuable. I'm sure the audiences will have a lot to take away from this discussion. Thank you
I hope
again
so.
so much for your time and for the important work that you do.
Thank you.
There is
Yeah,
no
you too.
rule book for this.
It's a lot of lived experience. Yeah,
Yes, lived
we're
experience.
doing big work. All of us, all the parents and caregivers. Well, thank you for having
sharing
me.
that knowledge.
All right. Well, have a beautiful day. And
Same to you. Bye
we'll
bye.
talk later. Bye.